Hey kids, it's Old Man Shouting at Clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders Show.
Hey GT. What are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey, kids. Welcome back to another episode of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% impartial, completely unbiased, and well-smoked reserved host, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. Joining me this week, as usual, is GT.
Hey, everyone. How you doing? It's Tuesday night. We're talking football. It's all good.
Sounds great. And MJ.
Hey, everyone. I have just been talking about how the days are getting shorter, which means it's almost Labor Day when the season starts.
Yeah.
Gotta love it when CFL actually starts. Well, I gotta tell y'all, it's been an interesting weekend here. I don't imagine anyone paying attention to the news has escaped all the stories about the Bald Range / Summerland fire that's ripping apart southern BC. It's about 10 kilometers that way. So it's been a fun weekend. It started on Friday. We got put on evacuation alert when it happened. And so the go bags are packed and we're ready to go. But so far, fortunately for us, unfortunately for the folks down in Summerland, the fire's headed south, and fingers are crossed that we're going to get through it okay, and maybe they may even rescind the alerts by this weekend unless the weather changes a lot. But it's been a very smoky and possibly anxious weekend, I guess.
Yeah, stressful, very stressful.
Yes, it can be. I'm really not that worried about the house. If you look at the maps, the way they protected Summerland itself, they've done an extremely good job. There's been some structures lost, but once they know what they're doing with these fires, they've got a real good job of protecting the main areas. And while we are on the outskirts of Peachland, it's away from where the fire is. So I don't think the fires will get through to us here, but I am not liking the idea of if we get evacuated and then I can't do any of this from home or any of that. I was a little nervous about what the show would be like this week. But that's my weekend. Anything exciting with y'all, or did we just talk football?
Let's just talk football. Unless MJ has some exciting news she's willing to share.
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So, thought we'd start out this week with a game. I've done this on a few different topics with different things and with people around it. So, it's kind of a version of Two Truths and a Lie that, in this case, I'm calling it CFL Facts and Shite. So basically, I've got two CFL facts, and one that's not a fact, that's shite. And I've either made it up whole cloth or I've misattributed something just to set the rules. I won't mess you up by saying something happened in like 2020 and it happened in 2019 or like that, or I won't be short, 10 yards on a record or something. It'll be fairly obvious that either it's didn't happen or that I'm giving credit to the wrong person. And then the other thing I would ask of you both is whoever goes first, if you know the answer for sure, don't say you know it for sure. Don't help the other person out. Just say, I'm thinking this way. So are we ready for this? I'll give you the three facts and then I'll come back and we'll let you all pick which one and any thoughts you might have on it. Okay?
All right.
All right.
Okay, so here we go. There's a bit of a theme to this based on the way the football's gone in the last couple of weeks, and it's quarterback rushing. So, number one, 2 of the 3 longest all-time CFL quarterback runs were by Damian Allen. Number 2, the top 3 quarterback rushing games in CFL history have all been by a quarterback for the Edmonton football team. And number 3, Tommy Stevens is the only quarterback in Canadian football history to rush for 3 touchdowns in 2 consecutive games. MJ, we'll let you go first. Which one do you think is the shite?
I feel like someone could have... I'm going to say Damon Allen. I feel like there's some pretty sprinting people that have played QB.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then. How about you, GT? Any thoughts?
Well, I didn't watch the end of that game, so I don't know how many touchdowns he scored. So I don't even know if that's close. I will
I'll
say
tell you
that.
that I don't mind telling you, he did score 3.
Okay, so there's that, and so I'm going to go with Damon Allen as well, because I think there was more than Damon Allen while he was in Edmonton. There was Matt Dunnigan while he was in Edmonton. There was Tracy Ham while he was in Edmonton. There was a lot of running quarterbacks in Edmonton in the late 80s, early 90s. So I will say Damon Allen doesn't necessarily have the 2 longest ones.
Okay, 3 longest ones. I'm saying
3 longest
3.
ones. There you go.
Yes. So, okay, so since you both picked the first one, let's maybe do them in reverse order. Let's go to the number 3. Tommy Stevens is the only Canadian quarterback in Canadian Football League history to score 3 touchdowns in 2 consecutive games. And this one is a fact. It is. This last week, we've seen Canadian history there. So, the next one, number 2, the top 3 rushing games by a quarterback in Canadian Football League history have all been by a quarterback for Edmonton. And there's been a lot of good quarterbacks, and a lot of them didn't play for Edmonton. So this one is a fact. Yes, it is. I was amazed when I went looking at this. Nealon Green, who I forgot even played for Edmonton, had 180 yards against Saskatchewan in 1999. Damon Allen had 170 yards for Edmonton against the BC Lions in 1993. Tracy Ham for Edmonton had 166 yards against Ottawa in 91. And Tommy Stevens had 163 yards against the Saskatchewan Roughriders when he was with Calgary in 22. Number 5, just so you know what inspired this, was Caden Salter with his 160 yards against Winnipeg. So he was number 5. So that means Damon Allen did not have 2 of the top 3 longest runs by a quarterback. In fact, Damon Allen didn't have any of the top 3 runs by a quarterback. But here, I'll give you a chance for bonus points. 2 of the 3 longest runs by a quarterback ever were by one quarterback. Feel like guessing who that might have been?
So when you say longest runs, do you mean like a single run, or do you mean total in a game?
No, I'm saying single run from scrimmage.
Single run from scrimmage.
A starting quarterback or a play quarterback?
Well, they were on the roster. They didn't necessarily start the game.
No.
Well, I'm going to go with Tommy Stevens in that 68-yarder against Saskatchewan a few years ago. I think, and this plays into what I had added to the agenda last minute there. But nonetheless, yes, I'm going to say Tommy Stevens in the 68-yarder.
You're right. I should have looked. I didn't see who they were against. That one was obviously against Saskatchewan. He also had a 71-yard rush.
Okay.
Might have been in that same game because he had 163 yards total. So he was 85 and 71, or actually, no, if it was 68 yards, it didn't even include that one. He had an 85 and a 71-yard run while he was with the Stampeders. And the third one was Nathan Rourke with 70 yards. So I found that kind of interesting once I started going and looking at all the running quarterbacks we had in the league, and with Flutie and with, like you said, with Matt Dunnigan and all the rest of it. It's a backup third-string short yardage guy who's dominated the last few and's got the records. Anyway, I hope you had some fun with that. Hopefully folks back home had some fun with that. We'll jump on. There's been a few big-name players from 2 teams basically going on the 6-game list this last week. The 2 teams got hit hard. The Riders put Ken Schaefer-Baker, Sam Emelis, Roland Milligan, and Trayvon Campbell all on the 6-game list. So 2 of their top receivers and 2 of their defensive backfield.
Yeah.
And the Ottawa Redblacks, besides the releasing people we'll talk about later, had Michael Wakefield and Bryce Carter both go on the 6-game list. And they're talking that Carter's may be ACL, so he might be long-term. What do you think? That's obviously, I think, going to hurt Ottawa. How much do you figure it's going to hurt either of the teams?
How can it hurt Ottawa?
How can it hurt Ottawa?
Yeah, they would have been released next week anyway, but
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter there. It really doesn't.
Yeah, they're in turnstile mode at this point, just running guys through and pick up a paycheck on you, and and don't let it hit you on the way out unless you happen to stick for a week or so. But anyway, so I would think the Saskatchewan ones are big. They had to pick up a guy from the Calgary released just to fill Canadian receiver positions. So they're in a bit of a dire straits. And those are two really important defensive backs. So, that impacts them. Now, that depth that they've had over the last few years will come into play, and they still have some really good players there. But if they're long-term, more than even the 6 games, I think they're in a pretty safe position because I honestly beginning to feel like this West is starting to get top-heavy. Unless BC can make a run, it doesn't feel like anybody's going to catch Saskatchewan or Edmonton for first or second. It's going to be a dogfight down there at the bottom end between the last 3 for the last 2 positions, but I don't see those top 2 having to sweat it too much. So
I tend to agree with you. Like you say, with Ottawa, I don't know. It certainly won't help them, but who knows with it. With Saskatchewan, Edouard has come in and filled in extremely well for Milligan. I've been impressed by that. And they bumped Lacombo out to corner, which I think is a more natural position. So they've done okay there, but they're thin now. If anything else goes, they could have real trouble. I think the receivers against that Ottawa defense, having a couple of rookies in there didn't hurt so bad. I don't think that'll be the case this week in Hamilton. I don't see them putting on near as much of an offensive showcase against Hamilton. If Bo was in there, I would think it would probably be a foregone conclusion. So we'll see with Frost in or whoever they start. But anyway, there were those. Next thing, MJ, you mentioned something about BC and tickets.
Yeah, so you can Google it to find the link, but the BC Lions are giving away a pair of free tickets for anyone who has not been to a game before or who hasn't been to a game since 2019. You can sign up. They'll send you 2 digital tickets. I'm not sure what game it's for. I was too scared to keep going in case I accidentally got tickets and couldn't use them. But yeah, if you're out there, you haven't been to a game in a while, go check it out for free. Go have some fun.
That's great promotion. I don't know how the season ticket holders will feel about it, but their attendance was down this week, so I can see them wanting to pump that up.
The Argos and the Lions are in tough because this is a little out of sight, out of mind. If you haven't been playing there for a few months, like everyone else had low attendance and working up, they're almost starting at beginning and trying to work up again. So work to do.
Yeah, the only problem with that is there's the age-old adage that, if you give somebody something for free, they'll never pay for it again. And that's always been a problem with papering the house in any sport, where they just won't come back unless they continue to get them free. So that's a challenge. I get what they're trying to do and hope to entice them. I like the idea of the concert, that they did better, but this year they didn't have that opportunity. So I can understand them trying to do something. But again, it's dicey, because you might get some people, but once they've got them for free, they're like, yeah, why would I pay for it? I can get them for free,
And as we saw in Edmonton this year, the real secret to bringing fans in is winning games. So
or playing the Riders.
Or playing the Riders. Or both.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, that is usually a draw. All right. Now, I hope you both got the updated show rundown, because I thought about this, figured I'd throw this out, filling some stuff in here. I said for your team. So I'm talking, of course, Hamilton for MJ and Calgary for GT, and for myself would be Saskatchewan. Can you think of one semi-realistic trade that the team could maybe make that would help them out the most this year? Let's start with GT this time.
We talked about I think we did this game last year.
We may have, yeah.
And at that point in time, I said the same thing I'd say today, which is Canadian linebacker. I think the Stampeders are really short still at linebacker position, and they could use a Canadian there to help fill out the depth. Now, so I just think they need a bruising Canadian linebacker, and I don't know who you can get. I just don't know. There aren't that many out there. So I don't know. I mean, last year I was, saying how much I would have liked to get A.J. Allen at the end of the season as a free agent, or somehow pry DuBlanco out of Edmonton. And those are the top 2 guys. And other than that, I don't know who else is available that steps in and makes that kind of a difference. But that's the only position, because their offensive line's not doing that great. But I don't think there's any one offensive lineman that you could make a deal for that would all of a sudden solidify the whole line.
Ottawa did start Cormier over A.J. Allen in this last game. Now, Allen still played a lot. I don't think they'd trade him because he's a Dinwiddie signing, and I think any Dinwiddie signings are safe. But if they were willing to, who would you say Calgary should be willing to give up to get a player like that?
Would you give up one of the defensive linemen? Maybe you could give up a guy like maybe Hicks. Maybe that would be a 1-for-1. That would have to be at that kind of level, I think, to be able to do it. I don't know. The receiving core, Ottawa needs Canadian receivers still, but I don't. Barnes, maybe you could do that trade. A Barnes and a pick, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. That's about it. To me, that's about the extent of where you would go. Because you wouldn't want, I don't think necessarily that Ottawa would want another American necessarily, another international. I think they would want a Canadian back for racial purposes, if nothing else.
That makes sense. How about you, MJ? Anything you can see Hamilton doing that would upgrade?
Well, we could use a quarterback that doesn't throw interceptions.
Yes.
My world for Nick Arbuckle right now, it's never going to happen. Be nice to have a running back that can run. No one's trading for anyone. Like, we're not, who are they? No one's trading with us for anything, I don't think. No, for those two positions, and that's all they really need.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, MJ, you and I are in the same position in that the wants outweigh the needs, or the needs outweigh the wants, or whatever the case may be, because you're not going to get back what you want. There's nobody out there to fill the void that you have, though.
For myself, I was noodling this around. This is what sort of prompted the question on my part, looking at the Riders, and they could use someone now with the injuries. They could use some help, a little more depth in the defensive backfield. But I really think that the one weak spot they've got right now on the team is possibly their fifth lineman, whether it's Fry in there, who's been serviceable but not great, or Johnson. It'll cover it in injuries, but they both did not participate this week, so we'll see. So that's the only thing I could see, and I don't know that this would be a realistic trade, but I'm wondering, with the fire sales going on in Ottawa, if you went to Dinwiddie and talked about maybe how does he feel about Desjardins on the line, and offer him a Jack Cohen and a couple of picks, maybe a first and second round pick.
If you wait a couple weeks, he'll probably be cut and you can just pick him up.
Yeah, there is that too. But then he can sign with anyone. If you make the trade, and I don't know what's left on his contract at all anyway, but I just thought that was an interesting little exercise, because really when I started thinking about there's not a lot of trades in the CFL, and I don't know that almost any of the teams that are any kind of contenders could really upgrade themselves with what anybody else would be willing to trade at this point.
Right.
Maybe once Ottawa is officially out of the playoffs or something, but there we were.
But just out of curiosity, now that the season continues to move forward, I assume the trade deadline also moves forward. So I think early October previously. So I wonder if it's mid-September this year. That's something I'll have to look up and see when that is. Yeah.
It's a great point. I never even considered that.
Yeah.
We'll see. Anyway, when I sent out the show rundown, you came back, GT, with a thought that I'm assuming you want to talk about. I didn't put it on there. I just didn't do a revise. I just figured I'd throw it out to you now. So, tired of Tommy.
Yeah, and I saw a quick comeback from MJ, but I wonder if we're talking about two different Tommies.
Oh, I don't know. You go first.
I'm tired of the Tommy Stevens train, wagon, whatever, hyperbole, whatever you want to call it. It's just getting out of control. This is ridiculous. I appreciate how good a player is. I watched him for 3 years in the red and white. I saw him rip off those 68-yarders. I saw what kind of a player he was. Then last year, he did it again in the green and white. So why is it 5 years in, TSN and all these websites and all the fans are all of a sudden treating him like he's just exploded onto the scene, like he didn't exist before. Like all of a sudden this miracle man has come out of nowhere and he's now the savior. It's like, okay, there's no Chris Trevor, so now we have to make it Tommy Stevens. That's almost what it feels like. It's like, just get over it. It's like, if this guy has been doing this, if you haven't been able to see this for 5 years, you haven't been watching the CFL for the last 5 years. So it just is making me nuts every time I turn the television on and they start the yakking again on TSN about, oh, it's Tommy time. Here he comes. Now they're going to just run out the last 5 minutes. This is the fresh, new, exciting football from Saskatchewan. It's like, come on, guys. This is like not new. This is not new. Get over it. Like, give the man his due. He does what he does really well, but it's not new. Get over it. Move on.
I feel like this is a bit shady because the Farhan over the offseason said that he was a waste of a QB roster spot. So I feel like TSN's like leaning in on it harder this year, but I take your point. It is quite a lot. And heaven forbid I have Rider fans like come down hard on me about this. But yeah, like there's other backup QB scoring touchdowns too.
Yeah. Are we talking about Xander Horvath? Well, they actually did a little bit talk about his ability to get scoring touchdowns as well but it's like, come on, again, taking nothing away from what he's accomplished, but it's not like he's just all of a sudden poof and he was there.
Also, it's kind of a boring storyline to be like hyping up a short yardage QB so much. I don't know.
Except for the fact that for some of us old-time football folks, the idea of just straight domination and imposing your will is a good thing. But I do agree. The only thing new is that Saskatchewan has been putting him in with 2 or 3 minutes left to run out the game. And Calgary didn't so much use him that way.
So would they be doing that if wha't was not injured? Mm-hmm. Would they? Because that's what Winnipeg does with Brady. That's what BC will do with Horvath. Yeah. That's what Calgary does with Mills. So they just don't have a running back. So they're using a quarterback like a running back. Yeah.
The first game they did it, AJ was still in there. So it is, I do buy into the fact that it is more sort of by doing that, you add one more blocker into the package. But frankly, teams will stop that. That's not going to keep happening consistently. Good defenses will know how to stop it. The only reason they won't is where it's happened in both the games that he's done well, the Riders have already been up by quite a bit. And a lot of the defense is making business decisions. So Tommy is great. I agree with that. I love the style of football. I posted this week a picture of him with the Vince Lombardi quote that says, everyone knows where you're going. The question is, can they stop it? Because that's what it feels like right now. And I'm as guilty as anyone of buying into that hype because I like smash mouth football. But I do agree. Back when I used to coach minor levels, teams that were run heavy, there was a coach in the league who used to say, oh yeah, bub up the middle. It's not football. It's bub up the middle with this at professional football. And we'll see how long it goes on. But yeah, I feel you on it. I get what you're saying. Media loves to hype a story. And
I guess
it happens to be the one this week, Next week against that Hamilton defense, maybe he gets stuffed on a short yardage and we're talking something different. Who knows?
The chances of that are pretty slim. They really are. I mean, they really are. So, but, and again, I'm not, just to be clear for all the green guys that are losing their mind right now, this is not a slight on your third string short yardage quarterback and how he's being used. This is about the media treatment of that same person and the fact that they're just like making me crazy.
Yeah, I feel you again on that. Later in the game recaps or whatever, when we talk about the games, I'll be talking about another one they're doing that with. But anyway, that's okay. Other bit of news, I don't know if you want to comment on it or not. Trevor Harris this week passed 40,000 passing yards, putting him 13th on the list all time. If he's at, I forget where exactly he's ended up, but if he stays healthy this season, he might move up. He might go up above, say, Tracy Ham, who's at 41.5, and Flutie at 41, somewhere in there too. Dunnigan's at 43. I think Harris would have to play another year to do that, and I don't know if he will. So I don't think he'll go above like 10th or 11th on the list, and then there's other active ones on there. Bo's still on there, and Zach's a little below him. But still, congratulations to Trevor. 40,000 yards is impressive. It's not the just shy of 80,000 that Calvillo threw, but it's still impressive. It shows that he's been effective at least for a while. All right.
And I will zip my lips on disparaging comment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when someone gets the accomplishment, we say congratulations. We'll go back to next week. No, I agree that there's been questions. Harris has been playing really well with Saskatchewan, but through his career, there's been some questions about his ability to get touchdowns. Calling him a great quarterback between the 20s was a valid statement for a few years. Let's see. Flag football, moving on to that. The Flag Football World Cup starts this week. I will try and find the link for watching and put it in the show notes if anybody wants to see it. But before the tournament starts, the Canadian men's won a game, because it turns out that unfortunately the African champions, Nigeria, for some reason couldn't get their visas straightened out and couldn't get into the country to play. So all the other 3 teams in that group will get an automatic win.
That's good for us. Good for us.
It is.
And, unfortunate for the tournament, unfortunate for the Nigerians. Yeah. But good for us. I mean, now we only have to win 2 games, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't want to win like that, though. That's
No, you don't.
No, and if we were going to, we wanted it to be Austria that had to drop out, because they're the ones that are ranked number 2 in the world, and they're in our group. All right. Maybe I should just strike this one out of the show rundown after our Tommy comments, but I was going to make a quick comment about the huge profits that Tim Hortons in Regina, because TSN and everybody else has been playing up the fact that every time Tommy gets a touchdown, he buys donuts for the O-lineman. So with the 6 of them in the last 2 weeks, it's been a lot of calories for the big guys. We'll just leave that there. I have.
This is very rider heavy today. I'm noticing a theme.
It is, but remember, I sent out, what else do we have? And so when you leave it all up to me, attendance this week, not so great again. Even with the Saskatchewan game in there, they got 29, and Montreal, I was happy to see, got 22,000 against Edmonton, but BC was under 20 and Toronto was just over 16. So the average was a hair under 22,000, and it's right in the middle of the pack. I think it's the 5th best for the season so far.
Yeah, again, though, I don't think that's too bad. In BC, I think that's pretty good. Again, as MJ said, coming back and starting afresh. And it's their second game there. But it's Hamilton. Interdivisional draws are not great in either division. If you're in Hamilton and BC's coming to town, or Calgary's coming to town, it's not the biggest draw. And, so they've had Toronto and Hamilton in their last 2 games. If they had Saskatchewan and Edmonton, or Winnipeg and Calgary even, they probably would have been better crowds. So I think that plays. And actually, the same thing in Toronto, over 16. It looked pretty full when we were there. It felt pretty full, and there were people on both sides of the stands, which was nice to see. And it felt pretty good there. And that's not a horrible start to the season for them, considering they've been away as long as they have, and considering that it was Calgary, it wasn't Hamilton. Now this game coming up, the next game is Hamilton, and it's the C&E game, so they're going to get a really good crowd for that. I don't think we can dismiss those numbers quite as quickly as just 2 bad crowds again. So I think those are okay.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think those are terrible crowds. They're not quite what we would hope for overall, but they're not terrible.
Well, just to put it in perspective, the last Edmonton Stingers home game I went to, there was 3,700 people.
So
like 15,000 people is what like sellout hockey games are. So, I mean, that's it's still a lot of people. Still a lot of people.
I'm hoping that Toronto will keep this up. As you said, it was an inter-conference game, so that doesn't help them. But they did have the promotions. I believe they gave out some jerseys, did they not? And then they had the all-you-can-eat in the upper bowl, which apparently also had some issues, but they've come back and said they're going to correct them, and I think have offered free tickets to some people. Do you know anything more about that, GT? Or
no, unfortunately, no. Sorry, I hadn't. I'm not up on that one at all. So I had my regular, overpriced beer, and then said that's the last time I'm doing that.
I saw posted on Reddit a statement from the Argos to fans saying something about logistical problems and that. But was I right about them giving out those jerseys or shirts during that game too to the first number of people?
10,000. Yeah, to the first 10,000 people they gave. It's a replica of the sweaters that John Candy, Bruce McNall, and Wayne Gretzky were wearing when they bought the team. So, and it's got the JC for John Candy little crest on it as one and the number 91 on the back. So it's a nice little piece of swag for sure. We'll talk about the game itself, but I mean, if you're at that game, the light show if they're going to do that at every game, it's going to bring people in just because people are going to talk about it. It was outstanding. It was incredible. Incredible. The in-game experience was like I haven't seen other than a Grey Cup.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to see them working on that. And I was unsure about the jerseys. I'd heard that was a possibility, and I thought it was probably true because I saw a lot of people in the stands wearing that same one, and it looked like a good piece of swag to get. So, okay. Well, fingers crossed. I wasn't trying to be negative about the attendance. I was just, this is the end. And I think again, if the league averages, 22,000 in all the stadiums, that certainly helps keep them financially viable. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not 22 in every stadium, the overall average still helps. Let's see, what else could we talk about here? Oh, the signings and releases this week. Well, as you mentioned, the Riders signed Janis, who'd been released by Calgary as a Canadian receiver, and brought in kicker Dawson Hodge, who I haven't heard of, but apparently has been in a couple of camps at least. And with everybody screaming for a new kicker in Saskatchewan, maybe that'll make a change. I don't know. And then the Redblacks continued their wholesale turnover. They brought in Sione Tahama for the D-line, who was released by BC recently, and that makes sense with the Wakefield and Carter injuries. But then they also released two of their starting defensive backs, Demario Houston and Amari Henderson. So, I don't know. Do you see them landing anywhere?
Yeah, probably. It might not be necessarily right away. There'll probably be injury replacement guys, or there might be backup, that veteran backup that you can have if you have any. Calgary's backfield is pretty thin. They've both played in Calgary. I think they both left on not great terms. Yeah. So I don't know what either side of the equation would want them back. Winnipeg's back end is still a mess. So that might be somewhere to look. And BC could maybe use one of them somewhere just because they're up and down in their back end. So yeah, maybe I could see them kind of getting another job.
BC is definitely not signing Demario Houston because they tried to sign him in the off season and then rescinded that. As a Redblacks release update, Gina Lowe's keeps posting pictures of himself fishing. So it seems like he's having a great time.
Okay. All right.
The Redblacks are a piece of work right now. They are, and it's funny. The defense seems to be taking the brunt of it with only a week under a new DC, and they've upended the entire backside of that defense. So,
and they're shedding a lot of semi-high paid players. Ones that have been brought in with reasonably good deals under free agency. I think Henderson came from last year, but Houston, I believe, was signed this year, which sort of puts the lie to what I said about anybody Dinwiddie picked up in free agency would be safe. Maybe he is just going through anyone. So who knows? Will Bell be gone if he doesn't start producing? That's a lot of money to be paying for a running back who isn't running.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go on to the games themselves. And you mentioned the Calgary game in Toronto. Calgary 30 at Toronto 33. The game started really well for Calgary when Mix fumbled on, I think, the first Toronto offensive play, and they managed to convert that into a touchdown from Mills. But then it just kind of went downhill from there. Either the Argos had VA confused or he was just off because he did not look comfortable. He didn't look like he knew where the ball was supposed to go. He ended up with 159 yards in passing, so not great. They also gave up a punt return to Grant, so special teams didn't help a whole lot. They took 88 yards in penalties. That didn't help. Kelly threw 4 interceptions, so that should have helped Calgary too. But with all of that, they were still in the game with over a little under a minute or a little over a minute left, I think. A 30-30 tie at midfield. They get 3rd and 1, and Dickinson decides to channel the Arkells and go 3rd and 1 from the gun, which doesn't work. Turns the ball over to Toronto. They get in field goal range and basically seal it with a relatively easy field goal. We can talk about other stuff that happened, but let's go to GT. I'm guessing you were at the game, and
I was.
In-game experience. How about performance on the field from either team?
I don't know how to describe it, honestly, because it was like neither team wanted to win. Calgary's defense played exceptionally well, other than one play late in the game that allowed Toronto to get close enough for that field goal, because they just didn't. Toronto's 3rd and 1 or 2nd and 1, where Kelly fired the ball down the field to Coxie, I believe it was, for about 30 yards. They were lost on that. You assume that they're going short yardage, but you still have to have somebody back there. Still have to watch the receivers, and they just did it on that play. But in the meantime, they played really well generally. Calgary's offensive line is still, to me, is the weak point. It's just not playing up to snuff. And then VA just had one of those VA days where it just wasn't on. He just wasn't on at all. As you said, he looked confused. It looked like he was over and under and everywhere but where he needed to be. But occasionally there were flashes of brilliance. So there was that. But yeah, they had enough there, and I knew it. I just felt it. Like that defense was doing enough, and Kelly was throwing interceptions, and they should have been up big, and they weren't. And it was like, yeah, they're not winning this game. And then they just didn't. So
how was the heat?
Heat was fine. It wasn't bad at all. There was a bit of a breeze where it might have been, obviously it's always worse on the field for the guys, but it wasn't really, really bad in the seats at all. The week before in Hamilton was a lot worse.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I wondered if that was part of it. I knew they were already on a short week and only practiced once, but I wondered if maybe it was just fatigue that took them down, because personally on the television, I didn't think that the defense played that good of a game. I mean, they were certainly not terrible, but there was some instances of sloppy tackling again.
Yeah.
There was just some things. And the other thing that I thought really killed them was they didn't seem to be able to contain Kelly in the pocket.
No, he had way too much time. He had way too much time when he needed it, and he just moved around and went outside when he wanted to. It wasn't a great defensive game, but the defense had played well enough to win with all those interceptions if the offense had simply played up to snuff. Yeah.
MJ, did you get a chance to see this? Any thoughts?
Well, it was CBL playoffs that night, so I saw some of this game, and I don't think I actually missed that much not watching all of it. VA seemed like once he threw that interception, that was it, right?
Yeah.
Like that felt like that was it. And the offense just like kind of collapsed in on itself. Like Barnes had 37 yards. He was their top receiver.
Yeah. And that interception was a duck, and it left his hand, and I said, that's an interception before it even got 40 yards down the field. It was a bad play.
Yeah.
Bad decision.
How tragic for myself personally that it was the Argos that ended his interception streak. I was like,
podcast team, yay! Our team won.
I mean, the O-line did not help him because they had 4 sacks on VA and bad night all around. Bright spots for Calgary that LaBrosse had 2 interceptions. I mean, I feel like I have to put little asterisks next to whenever they play Chad Kelly because it's not hard to seemingly get an interception against him. It kind of just lands in your lap. But he got 2 receptions. That guy has just played himself into a starting job. It's just been so impressive to watch. 4 interceptions. You should not win that game. That's stupid.
Yeah. I believe there was also a couple of turnovers other than the interceptions. There was the fumble, as you mentioned earlier. It wasn't just the interception. They should have won the game, but they did.
Yeah, it just seemed like not a... I don't know. I didn't enjoy any of this game that I watched.
Yeah. And you mentioned Barnes was their leading receiver, and the bulk of his stuff was on one catch, which was a fantastic catch I think at the end of the first half, wasn't it, where VA kind of underthrew him down on the goal line and he had to fight back to it and set up a touchdown. So there were some great plays. And
was Brissett on the field?
I believe.
Yeah, he made a couple of catches, but
No,
not much.
he was not. He did not make a single catch.
Oh, okay, I thought he did. Obviously, I'm mistaken. So, yeah,
No.
I thought he had
Oh,
made
no.
a couple,
Like,
but again, a couple
Yeah.
inconsequential ones, because everybody seemed to be
I
doing
had,
that.
just as I'm not talking about it, but I had him in fantasy and he got 0 points. And then I
Yeah.
thought he just didn't play, and no, he did play apparently. So
Yeah, we've stopped talking the fantasy
but
folks.
that's just how I knew that he was playing.
Yeah.
Didn't actually touch a football.
Well, I was going to say, folks will have to tune into the Old Man Plays CFL Fantasy on Thursday if they want to hear the full story. But spoiler alert, VA was my quarterback and captain. So,
ouch, not a good week.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well,
but
the only other thing I'll say about the game is just to go back to this. So I guess for FIFA, it must have been for FIFA, they've revamped BMO Field considerably. So they've now got all the fancy boxes looking south from at the lake, so looking south onto the field. And there was a bunch of people already utilizing those boxes, which was great. And then they must have got all this technology added to the stadium because this light show they put on, if you go back to the Grey Cup that was there, I think it was 2017, Imagine Dragons was the act. And the lights that night were started out with throughout the whole stadium. So what they did was they basically asked you to scan your phone, scan a QR code on your phone, and then your phone became part of the light show.
Oh, wow.
In the stadium, which was amazing to look at. And I didn't do it. There's not a chance I'm handing over all this privacy issues, and then people just hand over their phone to some company to mess with, right? I'm like, yeah, that's not a good idea. But nonetheless, it looked great. If anybody's watching that hasn't been to an Argo game, if they're going to do this every game, get to a game because it's way more fun than you'd expect. Way more fun. It's very cool. So I hope they continue to do it. It wasn't just a one-off.
I like anything that encourages more fans in Toronto. We joke about them being the podcast team, and we're not fans of Mr. Kelly here in general, but still, I would love to see Toronto doing better in the fan department. There was also an opportunity where Calgary could have challenged a call where there was a pass to Coxie that came out and was ruled as down by contact, and the replay made it very, very obvious it wasn't. But Toronto rushed up and got the playoff, which seemed like a good saving maneuver. And then on the next play, Kelly threw the ball to Green for a pick six.
Right.
But never mind. And I also got a kick out of it. I thought the pick six by Green was nice, but not necessarily the most fantastic play. And yet Lapo on the broadcast was just raving about what a fantastic player Green is and how good he was and what a fantastic player it was, and which I found ironic because in the pregame show, he did a coach's playbook about Calgary's problem on defense, showing, I think it was 3 plays where there were busts in coverage, and every one of them he was criticizing Green on. So it's a short memory in football.
Yeah.
I also said I thought Wilson for Calgary played a whale of a game.
He's been playing very well for the last few weeks. Absolutely.
Yes. And Hicks, besides his fumble, ripped off a 40-yard touchdown run, which is unusual against Calgary. But the last thing, I did get a new term from Lapo on the broadcast. He's always talking about the different names for the blitz packages and whatnot. And one I've never heard of before, he called it on one of the punt returns or kickoff returns, he called the player getting a cockroach block, which apparently is one of those blocks where the player ends up on his back with his arms and legs waving around on top in the air. So I like that. I'm going to steal that one. Any other thoughts before we move on?
No, I've kind of rinsed that one out of my memory.
Never happened.
Yeah.
All right. So then, let's talk the next week then with Ottawa or next night, Friday. Ottawa goes into Saskatchewan and it's Saskatchewan 42, Ottawa 20. And basically, to me, the story of this game, or not necessarily the story, but Saskatchewan came out with energy like you would not believe. They looked like they were ready to take on the world. They've had some slow starts this year. They certainly did not in this one, but it didn't translate into much. They were moving fast, playing hard, but they got a field goal out of it. And then when they got a chance to, I believe it was a fumble they picked up, wasn't it? The second play, they got the ball down in the Ottawa zone, and Harris ended up throwing to Cormier in the end zone instead of his own player. So they didn't look good through the first half until about the last 5 minutes. And then to me, they basically decided we're going to stop playing with our food and get serious. Whatever Ottawa was doing different with their defense that was giving them a bit of a trouble, they went into a tempo offense in the second half, and Harris did what he's capable of, just slice and dice them, and came away with an easy victory. And again, lots of other stuff that we could talk about. There was the whole Tommy Stevens 3 touchdowns out of it. There was a few other things went on, but how about you, MJ? What were your thoughts on here?
I have a note saying this is the stupidest game I've watched all year. And I was like, why am I so upset? But I don't know. I actually ended up turning it off because I just didn't, it was so painful to watch. It was so painful to watch. It might be some of my own fault because I accidentally got somehow involved in like some Rider fans online who were like thinking that the whole league is against them and everyone is conspiring against us and all the refs are being paid off and the refs must have a parlay. And it was just like ruined my whole game experience.
I can see that.
Ottawa's long snapper was injured. The umpire called it roughing and gave them a 15 yards, which negated a touchdown. And you thought that the end of the world had happened. Ben Major got caught on the hot mic saying that the umpire made a judgment call and that's it, right? And I was like, you guys ended up winning 42-20. Like, stop. Oh, I was so annoyed.
Okay, but let me jump in here and maybe ask both of you, because everyone's talking about that play one way or the other. What do you figure? Should the replay center have stepped in and said no penalty?
I can't even remember the play. The game was like, whatever. Yeah. This game was interesting for a few minutes. I mean, this game to me was Saskatchewan, Ottawa hang around way more than they should have early, and then they ran away with it, and I was like, I can double speed through this one. Yeah. So, sorry, I got no comment on that.
At some point, what's the point of having an umpire on the field then?
Yeah, I agree. My feeling on the play was when you saw the replay, it looked like the center had got his head up and stepped left to engage the oncoming rusher, which wouldn't have been a penalty. But that's a replay that's after the play, and it's much the same thing I was talking about last week with when they overruled the fumble against Ottawa by Montreal. It's a judgment call of how the play is going on. The refs on the field are the best ones to sort that out. I'm a Saskatchewan fan, as everybody knows, and I bleed green as much as anybody. I didn't think the replay center should be getting involved there. I think you trust the judgment of the officials. Yeah, Ben Major got on the mic and said it was a judgment of the umpire. Well, don't necessarily. We all saw who threw the flag, so I guess you're not identifying somebody. And yes, they're out there to make some judgment calls in those scenarios. So I had no problem with it not being overturned. Anyway, I'll let you go. I just wanted to get your phone back. Go ahead with MJ.
When you start picking like this, all it makes me want to do is just not have any video replay. Yeah. Just kick it old school. Yeah. Forget it. Don't even have replay. Why are we having replay? Who cares? Just like play the game, because it just gets to be too much. And anyway, so the consequence of that is that the Redblacks have no long snapper. They had like an emergency backup who bombled the convert, and they did not attempt a single field goal. And everyone's like, whoa, what are they doing? I'm like, they have no long snapper. And like they tried, and he bobbled it so badly apparently on the convert that they didn't even try again. Redblacks got a short yardage touchdown. So huzzah for them.
Yes.
Yeah, like good job, boys. You did it. But I mean, they had 12 rushing yards. They had 4 turnovers and 46 pass attempts. So, I mean, I turned it off. Yeah. This is not entertaining. This is not entertainment. This is stupid. And I wouldn't even have turned this game on if I wasn't doing the podcast, because there is no point in me watching this game.
Yeah. Personally, I'm kind of with you. I don't know about getting rid of replay completely, but I would be perfectly happy if the only thing that replay was used for was strictly factual stuff. So that is, there's a fumble, was a body part down by contact before the ball came out? Yeah, that's an obvious yes or no rule on that. Does a ball get across the goal line before somebody's down by contact? rule on that. But all this other stuff about calling penalties or not called penalties, it's part of the game. I'd be happy to take that out of the replay center's hands and just let the officials do it. I'm in an opinionated mood tonight, though. Perhaps having a fire over my shoulder has affected my psyche. How about you, GT? You obviously were not terribly impressed with the game, too. Any thoughts other than...
And I agree with you 100%. Once Saskatchewan went into hurry-up offense, and they went pretty early into it and then sustained it for a long time. It was, Ottawa had no answer. That's where they finally got out of control. But by that point, it was like, I'm with MJ. I was like, yeah, this isn't worth watching too much of anymore. It was the game at that point we thought it probably was going to be. Saskatchewan looked very good in the hurry-up offense. They were making was on target, and those rookie receivers that nobody had heard of before were making catches. So it was working. It was definitely working, but it wasn't a great game to watch.
Yeah.
Unless you're a Saskatchewan fan, and then, of course, it was a wonderful game.
Yeah, exactly. But as a football game, it wasn't the best, and I agree. It was one of the better halves Harris has had this season. He was whatever he'd sorted out there. But, yeah, like you said, Ottawa just couldn't do anything right. I was trying to remember how Saskatchewan got the ball after their first field goal, and it was a fumble that was caused because Pimpleton was coming across on a fake sweep, and the snap went early and bounced off him. I've said before, I love Ben Major as a ref. And there did seem to be some issues with the officiating team on it, but he's still great. There was one that at the start of the second half where Saskatchewan was deep in their own end zone, got called for a delay of game time clock violation on the punt, and he picked up the flag and admitted to the crowd, said that was an official's mistake. We blew the clock in too late. There was also a play where Harris ran up the middle and may or may not have fumbled. I don't think in the end he did, but there was a big scramble for the ball. It didn't matter because there was an illegal contact. But again, Major didn't just say illegal contact. He got up and said, before the whole scramble thing, we had, he's definitely entertaining. I like that about him in a game. They did seem though, and I noticed this with both sides of the ball. Again, I'm not a Saskatchewan fan here bitching about something that happened with Saskatchewan. It was for both sides. They seemed like, at least in the first half, they were having trouble getting themselves together and getting the play whistled in on time. So either team wasn't having their full at least 20 seconds they should have allowed. And it really sort of stood out. What got me watching it and then checking it as much as I could from there on was there was a short yardage play for Saskatchewan where they sent Tommy in and went their huddle, and you could tell they were waiting for the play to be whistled in so they could run up and just get the ball moved quickly. And there was 6 seconds left on the time clock when they whistled it in. So they rushed up and then took an offside or an illegal procedure. I don't know why they were having so much trouble getting it into play from there. Anything else? Yeah, I don't think they'll do near as well against the Hamilton defense, but two of the Saskatchewan backups, Deshaun Mims and Jete, Dylan Jete, I think it is, had fantastic games. Jete's their second-round draft pick this year, and he made a couple of nice catches, a touchdown, and one that should have been intercepted, and he came back and stepped in front of the DB to get the ball. So I was impressed by that. And then the last thing that I had was, again, credit where it's due, Luke Wilson doing his analysis as Trevor Harris as a flanker on the short yardage play. And the fact that he just goes out and stands in the wide receiver spot and does nothing. And so they had some fun with that, and I did enjoy it. But I also thought him and whoever was doing the play-by-play, I remember, was it Rod Smith, I think? Anyway, they were talking about how it's obvious at some point they have to throw it to Harris out there. At some point they're looking for Harris to be uncovered. I don't think you'll ever see the ball thrown to Harris. Why would you take a chance on getting your 40-year-old quarterback hit?
That seems to be a trend this year, too, because VA does the exact same thing. And I think, and I saw even the one guy could throw the ball in Rourke doing the same thing on Saturday. So it seems to be a trend that with the short yardage, the quarterback is sort of out there as a wasted position. Why don't you have a guy who can at least block, if nothing else? So it's strange.
Exactly. And with BC with Nathan, I can see it because Horvath isn't a quarterback, so they have to have a quarterback on the field. But yeah, VA and Harris, I think what they're doing with that is they're not going to throw to the quarterback, but they're looking for something that if there's ever a situation in a game where it looks like it matters and they get the defensive package that they want, they can suddenly pop the quarterback back into the shotgun and go for a pass with it. I think that's the only reason you keep them out there. I think that was everything I had. Other than, garbage time, the Hoskins got a nice strip sack on MBT, but anything else? Don't think so.
Okay. Well, I had shut it off. I didn't even realize MBT got in the game. So there you go.
Yeah,
I was gone by then.
He had 3 pass attempts. He went 2 for 3 for 18 yards.
Yes, and a fumble.
And a fumble. And I didn't see him play either.
Yeah. Okay. So, fortunately, we were treated by a much better game the next day. No, we weren't. Oh. Unfortunately, no. Edmonton at Montreal. We were all expecting a great game. Edmonton 30, Montreal 48. Frankly, they were close through a lot of it, but my opinion on this, and I know I'm not alone, is this game got lost at the end of the half. When Edmonton, there was about, I think, a little under a minute to go. Edmonton had 3rd and 1 deep down in Montreal territory. It looked like an easy first down to get. They could have got that, taken more time off the clock, and maybe got the touchdown. Instead, Killen decided to play safe and went for the field goal, left enough time on the clock that Montreal came back and kicked a field goal before the half was over, so that was a wash. And it just, I don't want to say that Edmonton gave up at that point, but it seemed to take something out of them. It was honestly, especially once we got into like that fourth quarter, it was the first time all season I felt like there were Edmonton players that were just playing out the game. Let's get out of here. And I haven't seen that from them yet. To me, that was the biggest thing in the whole game. GT, do you agree with that? Do you have other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. That seemed to be the turning point, because at that point it did seem to be a slugfest going back and forth. And then that was a strange decision, and Fajardo was not happy by any means. He was livid with the decision. I thought it was longer than a yard. I thought it was closer to 2. So I do understand that that makes a big difference. Yeah. I get why Killen did it. As they said on the broadcast, you got to take the points against Montreal when you can get it. But it came back to bite them, as they also said it could, and it did. And then in the second half, Montreal just came out and just took it to them and just was done. And you're right. It looked like, by the end of that game, it was, let's just get out of here. But Montreal was just dominant, and there was some unbelievable passing by Davis Alexander again. It was unbelievable. And the catch in the end zone by Philpott for that touchdown was incredible. So it was still a fun game. It was a much, I mean, it was a blowout kind of a game score-wise, but it was a much funner game to watch. That game the night before, so blowout to blowout, it was a lot better to watch, entertainment value-wise. So I give it that, and I stayed watching that to the end.
There were 2 things with the field goal. They were deep in Montreal territory, so if they hadn't got the first down, Montreal would have had a lot more distance to go to get back into field goal range in short time, so it still would have been a wash with it. I definitely think that made a huge difference, but it also didn't help that they came out in the second half, and on the second play, Mac fumbled and gave the ball back to Montreal. To me, that was the end. How about you, MJ? You picked Montreal, so you get to not wear a Montreal jersey.
No, I don't have to. Yeah, Alexander and Philpott, that 50-yard touchdown pass was just spectacular. I was like, I think you could put 6 DBs on Philpott and he would still come up with that catch. Like,
3 touchdowns.
Cody and Mac also had a really nice long deep pass, and that. But by that time, like, I feel like Montreal's like playing zone by then, and they don't care. But it still was really nice. Powell, they put Powell in, and he got murdered like out in the field. He like was laying on the field all like broken, and then he was like got up. He's like put his hands up. He's like, touchdown! I did it. Like, he just wanted to make sure it was a touchdown. It's annoying. It's annoying how good this is, because Edmonton is supposed to be the second, if not second best team in the league, and they looked bad against Alouettes. This is kind of like watching Anthony Calvillo and Ben Cahoon with Don Matthews on the sideline. Just running up scores every week, just tearing your supposedly amazing team apart and not even being a little bit sorry about it. And then my last, it's Alexander. I was just joking. Like some say like the best relationship is Alexander and Philpott, but I contend that the best relationship is Davis Alexander and the fans at Molson Percival Stadium.
Yes. Yeah, I saw you post during the game that you want to go to a game in Montreal, and I agree with you.
All I want to do is go to a game in Montreal. The relationship he has with those fans is just, you can't even put, I don't even know how to describe it. You can't even put a price on it. It's just incredible.
Yes. Got to feel good for Montreal and their fans. They are playing really well. They were down 4 defensive starters. I mean, and they still did that. So,
and they shut the Elks out of 2 quarters. The Elks didn't score in the first or the third, and you can't do that. And I always joke that Montreal's sleeping in the third, and they scored 10 points in the third, so they finally have figured that out.
And the other bit of hype that's out there in the league right now, Mr. Philpott, another 3 touchdowns and 131 yards. And it's getting far enough into the season now that I think it's safe to say, and knock on wood, barring anything that takes him out for a few games, he'll definitely win the receiving title, and he may set a new record, which would be wonderful.
Yeah. And he wasn't even their top receiver of that game. It was Sneed.
Yeah.
And again, he only used 4 receivers again. Like Sneed, Philpott, Speak. 3. Sneed, Philpott, and Speaker, basically. That's all he needs.
Yeah, they were pointing out in the game that Philpott's the number 1 receiver in the league. Sneed is number 2. And they're both quite a bit ahead of anybody else. So, It was also, though, it was a little bit of an ugly game with penalties. I mean, not terrible, but most of the games when I'm looking at them this year, the teams are frankly taking 3-4 penalties for under 50 yards. It's been a very clean season, whereas this one, Edmonton took 5 for 68 and Montreal 7 for 89. So it did have an impact, but not huge, not by any means. No, it's... I don't know what it's going to take to knock Montreal off their game, but...
Anthony Calvillo and Ben Cahoon all over again. And all of our Eastern teams are just going to sit and watch them just pass us by.
Yeah. Yes. And speaking of those Eastern teams, another one of them, Hamilton, went into BC. And
no.
Well, let's see now. Was this what was the score on the first game? Oh, it was a 3-point game. So this one was also a 3-point game, one of the closest games of the weekend, but not good football. Hamilton had basically no offense. Frost he got some yardage. I think he got 200 and some yards, but he was playing the BC secondary, which is basically like playing against air, and didn't play well. Threw one ball high that got tipped and intercepted. So we'll see. Again, they were playing the old apology thing for Milanovic. Well, he won't keep a player in there if he turns over the ball. We'll see who starts this week. But I don't know.
Ford got benched mid-game. Frost is out there throwing the same interceptions.
Exactly. But on the other side, Nathan in his first game back did not look good. And this is where I was saying about TSN making a big deal of something where they shouldn't have. I could not believe Glenn Suter basically refusing to admit that Nathan can be a less than perfect quarterback. He was highly critical of Frost at times. Anytime anything went wrong for Nathan, it was the problem of the receivers or the O-line or something. And to the point that Nathan had at one point had a man coming across the middle where you're going to get hit. Everybody knows that. The ball went about 4 yards short of him, and Suter's on there saying, well, I think Nathan put that one in the ground to protect his player. No, if you're going to protect the player, you're not going to call that play.
Suter also accused Witten McManus of faking an injury.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when Witten McManus eventually came on, he's like, look, he's not injured. LOL. Basic. No. And I was like, Glenn, this is a veteran player. You don't need to be. No, I was so upset. You don't need to be doing stuff like that. And even if he was faking it, even if he was, you don't need to like go on about it. And then when he comes back on, be like, oh, I guess he's not so injured after all. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, that's for us in the stands. That's not for television.
Yeah, that's for me to say, not you.
Yeah,
TV present.
I think Nathan did throw a couple interceptions. He also had one that was a fantastic pick by Panabaker that got called back by an offside call. So he did not look good to me. You know, maybe his other shoulder is still bothering him a lot. Maybe there's some rust on there, but that was not a game that featured a great quarterback on either side, I didn't think. Anyway, how about you, GT? Any?
Yeah, no, I thought it was a fun game. Again to watch. I thought Katoy was coming off of, the first game since the first one of the year. It looked terrific, and he made some wonderful catch. I thought some shots of Harrison Frost. He looked a high school junior sitting on the bench. The shady moment was where they just kept showing him, and he was just like, I don't know what he's doing, whether he's just zoning, thinking, or what. He was just sitting on the bench staring. And just stare, and it looked like he was about to break down and cry at any moment. It was almost like that. And then at the end of the game, it almost looked like he was going to break down and cry. But he looked like literally a high school junior. He looked so young. It was unbelievable. So I felt kind of bad for presentation. But he had some moments where he was slinging the ball as well and throwing. And, you can say what you want, but he is a pocket guy, and that is Milanovic's guy. And he's not giving up that job. Unless he gets injured, there's no one else getting until Bo comes back. That's going to be their guy. So, that's, everything else that we can say about Milanovic, he's not going to give it up. He's not. Frost is his guy now.
Yeah. Scott did not help him out because they only ran Roundtree 3 times.
Yeah.
Right.
That too with the backup
13
quarterback.
13 yards.
Yeah.
And Frost had 33 pass attempts. Like, you're not helping your rookie. No, I would cry too. I would sit on that bench and cry too if that's what happened to me.
Well, and with no running game, BC just released the hounds, and he could not handle the pressure. I mean, anybody coming up against them has seen now heavy pressure seems to work right now. So.
Yeah, I was also assured that the Ticats had a good defense, and they did not play well. Despite. Okay, so my husband sent me a video of a guy with butter sticks on his fingers. The guy's like, "Oh, I'm open, pass to me," and he's like, "Oh."
A BC receiver,
receivers. No, guys, I can do it this time. Like, and that's what it was. And it was like nothing to do with the Hamilton defense at all. They just stood and watched them like fumbling the ball around. Yeah, the BC Lions special teams, they got more than 5 yards on a return. The returner did not run into his own players, so much improved. Sean White, man, his range is getting pretty low.
Yes, he's money when he's within range, but
yeah, that's tough for them. And then besides Glenn Suter being so annoying, TSN put up a betting ad during Andre Prue's call, and I did not hear what the call was. They just came back and the game was on, and all I learned was betting, and I did not learn what the penalty was.
I had a line that I was thinking about using, so maybe I'll throw it out there because I saw somebody else talking about the betting ads in Alberta. So I was going to ask you, what's the over-under on the number of betting ads you see in any given day right now, MJ?
All right. Let me tell you, I talked about this in Fantasy, but I have betting ads. I have, if I listen to a podcast, every ad break has 2 to 3 betting ads. There's billboards in my city. My Gmail has ads. They're all betting ads. Everyone's Reddit is betting ads. Radio, betting ads. My aunt actually messaged me and said she missed truck commercials in retrospect. We're like, we should have not been so mean about the truck commercials because we kind of miss them now. But I wish there had just been a betting ad overlay of this entire game so I didn't have to watch it.
Rourke was shaky. He did make some good plays, but his numbers were really inflated by one long pass to McInnes that went for a lot more yardage than it should have because of a misplay by the Hamilton backfield. So there was that. But I did think that for Hamilton, one player who did stand out was Charbel DeBeer on the D line. I thought he had a whale of a game. In the last couple of games, he's really come on. He's being quite the run stopper in the middle there. So That's it. Anything else before we move along?
My husband and I are 1-1 on the season, so harmony is restored in our house.
Good. That takes us to the power rankings, GT. I should have pulled up some comments because we've been getting more and more comments on Reddit.
Oh.
Most of them agree with you. There's usually a little picky here or there about something, including one from a Winnipeg fan who said, I'm not saying my team should be at the top of the standings, but how the hell do they get below Hamilton? So I sent him the clip from last week that explained all of that. And the fact that the person recording the power rankings may have had a bit of a bias.
I still think they should.
I'm not saying you're
We'll see
wrong.
where everyone is this week.
But GT did sort of leave it up in the air. And
if he thinks Winnipeg is a good team right now, then I'm not sure what to tell this person.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be so cocky, sir. Your team is not great.
Okay, so what do we have this week for power rankings, GT?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious who's number one. That would be the Alouettes at Montreal at number one. It kind of gets crazy after that and I did think about it and I just still put Edmonton at number two because I thought they at least played the number one team and looked, decent for a portion of it before they kind of folded the team. I have the Riders at 3, and a lot of people might think the Riders need to be 2, but because they won and pulled into a tie, or maybe even ahead of Edmonton now, I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the standings exactly. I think they still didn't look terrific, and they let Ottawa, as I said earlier, hang around longer than they should have. So I wasn't there. I have Calgary at 4 still. Even I think that game was a bad game for Calgary. It allowed them. It put them at 4 and 5, and they should have been 5 and 4. And now, falling behind with who had the buy-in or 4 and 4. BC's coming up. So all of a sudden, Calgary, that 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how they might be the third team in the West, might be the fifth team in the West if they're not careful. So it's all of a sudden right there because they play BC this week. But I do have them in 4th this week. I have Toronto in 5 because, they played very well. The last couple of weeks, and I thought, they deserve to be there. BC at 6 because they look pretty good. And Nathan's back, and they have I have your gentleman in Winnipeg will be happy. I have them at 7 and I have them there at 7 because Zach is apparently taking first team reps and will be back this week. And they're Hamilton at home this week. So if they don't win this one, come on. And I have Hamilton at 8 and Ottawa at 9, as always.
Yes, sounds good. One little correction there. Winnipeg has Ottawa at home this week. You said Hamilton.
Oh, Winnipeg has even easier then.
Yeah.
So
Because Saskatchewan's going into Hamilton, and then trying to remember, I think Montreal's off this week. It's BC at Calgary, and Edmonton would be against whoever else is left there, I guess.
Toronto,
yes.
Yeah, Toronto's in Edmonton, I think.
I have trouble disagreeing with anything that you've said. The whole thing between Edmonton and Saskatchewan right now, I think it's almost a coin toss. I don't think that this weekend's results changed that at all. I think it had a lot more to do with the teams they were playing against. So there, and then Calgary, I think I said a week or two ago that Calgary had changed the discussion from the top 3 teams in the CFL to the top 4, but teams that are really in that top tier don't have games like that generally. So exactly. I think they're at the top of the second tier, but yeah. Any thoughts, MJ?
I would contend Alouettes are in their own tier. Then it's like Elks and Riders in another tier, and then Calgary, Toronto, and BC are in another tier, and it's like down to the bottom. Maybe Ottawa's in its own terrible tier, but
see, I'm not prepared to put Montreal head and shoulders above the other 2 right now because, yes, they had a fantastic game in Montreal against Edmonton, but they also lost to Edmonton earlier in the season in Edmonton. So,
but in overtime on a questionable call.
Yeah, maybe, but that's
a win is a win, but Montreal stomped on them this weekend. If you had a statement game, that was it. And that was a big game for Cody and Austin Mack. They were going into their old barn and they just got blown out.
Okay. Well, we'll see how things go with the reactions. from people on this one with any comments that we get. But it's nice to see people are paying attention and are passionate, and generally we're not seeing a lot of the vitriol that some of the power rankings seem to get. So I like that. All right, going.
That means I either need to move things around a lot more, or we just have nicer people that are fans.
I would suggest maybe you move Hamilton up a few spots again and get some people angry.
Yes, there we go. Yeah. Maybe you just have your finger on the pulse of CFL fandom better than anyone else does. All right, injury reports for this week. What we've got so far. BC had Yates from the offensive line, did not participate today. He was in practice yesterday, so I don't know if something happened there that made it worse. Calgary, when I first looked at it, the Tuesday report wasn't out yet, and it looked bad. They had 3 of their 5 defensive backs did not participate, Alexander, Grant, and Webb, and then Hutchings was limited. But on Tuesday, they were all back at full, so I'm assuming that was just post-game nicks, and they were...
But they were like on a little trip together.
Yeah, gave them a little extra time to get the bruises out of the way. Ottawa, Jay did not participate, and I don't think he'll be back. They had his arm in an air cast. Carter and Wakefield, who've both gone on to the 6-game list, did not participate. And Lang from the D-line and Pearl from the O-line were limited. Winnipeg, Oliveira was limited. That was the only one. See, Toronto, Priester and O-lineman Randolph did not participate, and Hunter from the O-line was limited. Edmonton, again, both sides of the line, Beard on the offense and Fox on the defense did not participate, and Logan Jr. and Mechie did not participate. And Logan Jr. looked hurt fairly bad when he went off, so they may be down him. And then in Saskatchewan, they had Fry again, did not participate, and he was replaced by Johnson this week, and he did not participate. So I'm hoping they get one of them back, but we'll have to see. Hamilton, De Beer, after his great game, was limited, but both Lawler and Taranowski did not participate. So that won't help especially if Lawler's out. Something to keep in mind as you're making your game picks here.
Yep.
Yeah. And I know it's tough early. I mean, frankly, I picked Hamilton to beat BC last week. And if I'd seen the rosters at the end, I would have changed. I stuck to it because I'd picked it here, but I would have changed it because of quarterbacks. And not because Nathan Rourke was in for BC, but because Frost was in for Hamilton. And I think he's a disaster. I don't see him being the answer for them. So, but we got to make our picks now midweek, and I guess stick with them. So let's go. We've got BC going into Calgary. We'll let GT be the first pick on this one.
I'm going with BC. I just don't think the Stampeders I think they're kind of in that midseason rut, and that VA's just not on the game again. He's going through mode, and I kind of think BC's defense is going to have a bit of a field. So I'm picking BC.
MJ?
I hope LaBrosse gets like 20 interceptions, but I think the last 2 weekends have been they won with Salter in a game they shouldn't have won. They won a game with Rourke back looking super rusty that they probably shouldn't have won. So I think that creates a lot of confidence and people rally around that. I think, VA had such a, I'll pick BC. I hope it's a fun game, but I would love a shootout.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's a shootout. I would love nothing more to see some high flying, but you might see LaBrosse and some other people with a bunch of picks.
To me, the big question in this is what you said, GT. Did VA have a bad game, or is he going into a slump? Because historically, when he has a bad game, it seems to steamroll a little bit and keep happening. So that maybe makes it difficult to pick Calgary. But I'm going to be the outlier and pick Calgary anyway. Because I'm sorry, that BC defensive secondary is so bad. And yes, they'll get some pressure on VA, but I don't think they're going to throw him off the game the way that Toronto did. I think that VA will make the difference. And frankly, unless Nathan and his receivers have a much better game than this week, it won't matter how well Calgary plays because, you said there was the video joking about the BC receivers dropping balls, and they had a couple of flat-out drops. They did. But they also had a lot of balls that they were calling drops, but they weren't in a very good position to catch them. So that's where I saw a lot of rust from Mr. Rourke. And I'm not saying he's a terrible quarterback. I think he'll come back and do well, but I think I think that shoulder bothers him more than anybody's talking about. So I'm Calgary. Ottawa at Winnipeg. This one's a tough one. Maybe I'll jump in. I don't know. I will be the idiot. I'm going to say Ottawa. I think they're due. Like they say, nobody goes 0-18 through the season. And Winnipeg, even with Zach in there, I think is in disarray. Now, that's a brave pick with Ottawa having dumped two of their starters in the secondary and everything, but I'm going to go with it. How about you, MJ?
Neither of these teams should win. Zach is miraculously off the 6-game injured list. Funny how that happened. His neck seems fine. I'm actually quite worried about him playing.
Yes.
But I am not Zach, and I am not the Winnipeg Blue Bombers coaching staff. I don't know what else Ottawa can do. I don't know what else they can do. Winnipeg is so... is Winnipeg's defense going to play like last time? They're coming off the bye. I would hope that they play a little better off the bye. I think both teams deserve to lose, but I will pick the Bombers to win.
And GT?
Bombers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see Ottawa. They're just chaos, and they're not good chaos. They're bad chaos. And, I just can't see them. I don't know where they're going to pick up. I don't know. I don't feel it's going to be this week. I'm not like you, old man. This time around, I don't think it's going to be this week. So I'm going Bombers.
Yes. Well, I'm kind of breaking a new rule I gave myself this week because I'd picked Calgary to win and I'd picked Edmonton to win. And I realized that that's not a bad thing for my psyche because if they win, well, then I got my picks right. But if they lose, then that's better for the Riders. So maybe I'll just pick the Western teams to win in any matchup, but I don't think so. No, I don't know. Everything that talks football about me says it should be Winnipeg because, again, two defensive secondary players released, two of their two best defensive linemen going on the 6-game list. All Winnipeg has to do is what they started out doing in the last game and actually run Brady a lot and just control the game, and they should win it. But with Condell in there, I have no faith, and I don't know. I don't think this is the week for Winnipeg to come back at home.
Go sit on a patio and enjoy a drink and not watch this game, friends.
Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe, but somebody has to watch it for the podcast.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. And we'll talk later about why I especially have to this time. Okay. Toronto going into Edmonton. MJ.
Edmonton.
Oh, okay. GT, Edmonton.
Yeah,
MJ.
Edmonton.
Any thoughts more on that, GT?
No, I just think, again, Edmonton is the better team. And if Kelly's going to continue to throw interceptions, that Edmonton defense will pick them up. And Cody's not, in a funk like VA was. I got Edmonton.
MJ?
Yeah, I hoped Tyrell Ford intercepts Chad Kelly 100 times, and I am picking Edmonton.
Well, I don't think it's possible for Tyrell to intercept him 100 times, but I think it's entirely possible for all 12 men on the Edmonton defense to intercept Kelly. That's a possibility. I'm picking Edmonton. Yeah, they'll bounce back.
Yeah, they'll bounce.
And last one, Saskatchewan at Hamilton. I'm the Saskatchewan guy. I'll pick Saskatchewan. I don't think it's going to be a blowout necessarily. I don't think that their young receivers are going to do near as well against the Hamilton secondary as they did against Ottawa. But I don't think Hamilton can generate enough offense or special teams yardage to win the game. So I'm going Saskatchewan. How about you, MJ?
Hamilton refuses to have a run game with a rookie quarterback. They are continually decided to rely on Isaiah Wooden and the defense. And let me tell you, the defense is tired. That was very evident from last game. They're tired. Yeah, I'm going to pick Riders.
Yeah, and they are coming back from a trip from BC, so at least it's a Saturday game for them. But how about you, GT?
Yeah, I've got the Riders too. I just don't think, again, even if their offense is a little tired and they do have a couple of rookie guys at receiver, and Hamilton's defense has proven it in the last few weeks to be pretty strong initially, but then they just get tired, as MJ said, when they're on the field again. And that happened in BC. They're just on the field too much. And I don't think Saskatchewan's defense is going to let that Harrison Frost win the game. I just don't think the defense is going to let Harrison Frost win the game. So that's why Saskatchewan will win.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Looking forward to Scott Milanovich's press conference after this game.
Well, that kind of covers off the week, I'm thinking. So it brings us to the end, and unfortunately, we have some less than pleasant news. GT is going to have to go on the 6th game for us, so he won't be back for a little bit, unfortunately. So GT, your last sort of, for now, closing thoughts and sign off.
Well, it's been fun. I'm looking forward to a little bit of time to recharge, and then we will see what happens in the future. But for now, I appreciate everything you guys have done, and I don't know who's going to do the power rankings from here on. Have fun with it. And every time you post them, I will make disparaging comments and scream and so on. So you know where they're coming from. But nonetheless,
okay.
Enjoy yourselves, everyone. We will talk soon. And yes, will continue to occasionally post at GT Barnum on Blue Sky.
Sounds good. And very, very much appreciate everything you've brought to the show here in the last year and a half. Can't wait until we get a chance to get you back.
The only thing I will say as well is we will uphold and continue the jerseys. Okay. So I will just keep that be on the down low but the scores will continue. So in fact, the Toronto Calgary was finished last week, and it's now $157 for the Toronto jersey. If anyone, any other Argo fans are out there, please step up. It's a worthy cause with CFL fans, Fight Camp, and the other jerseys. MJ and Old Man will keep you up to date on those, and then they will be available because I will not give that. As Old Man has always said, you play the full team once you make a commitment. So those things I will continue to do.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'm sorry, we should have talked about that. Yes, see if we can get some interest. We've also got the BC G. Rory Simon one coming up, a Winnipeg unnamed one, and Saskatchewan Michael Bishop. So a chance to pick up. And these are not jerseys that have just, somehow been knocking around out there. These are jerseys GT has collected. They're part of his beloved collection. Very, very good of you to put these up there to make some money for a very good cause. So please, if you're interested in the first one here, $157, let us know in the comments here. Reach out to us on any of the media platforms. Get yourself an authentic jersey and a good feeling from helping out the CFL fans fight camps. MJ, how about you?
How do you even follow that? I'm actually really sad right now. Gonna miss you.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. Well, there's as we are a Sea Bears secondary podcast, the CBL finals are on this week, Wednesday. Starting on Wednesday, the Sea Bears and the Honey Badgers are playing, so that's what's happening there. And hopefully we have some better football games, and it's just like a lights out sports weekend. You can find me on Instagram, or you can, make comments about the power rankings. And if I'm running them, Hamilton's at the top.
Okay, we'll get some more comments then.
And you can find me on Blue Sky planning my trip to Montreal. Sports and plants.
Absolutely. And yeah, it has been a great run here with both of you with it. So that we'll see where we go now next week. Unfortunately, MJ's also on the 1-game list. So at this point, you're looking at me. We have reached out to the possibility of a special guest host, and we'll see what happens with that. But be prepared. Either you'll get a very pleasant surprise to someone that a lot of you may know and coming on and making sure I don't mess things up, or you get to put up with the old man monotone for a week on my own. We'll see what happens. But regardless, like anything else, we work through the adversity of it all and do what we can. Thank you for everyone who's subscribed. If you haven't yet, please do. Thank you for all the other stuff, the likes, the ratings, the rest of it. It's been a very enjoyable season so far, and we'll try our best to keep entertaining while GT has to step away. So that's about it for now. Until next week, for GT and MJ, this is Old Man saying, get the hell off my lawn.